This is Let's Talk Radical Radio, getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This on-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR.
Your hosts today are Mary Frank leading our conversation, Paul Raffel answering the phones, and I'm Robin Carpenter.
And when you call in and hear the phone ringing, please hang on. When you hear me say you're on the air, please give us your first name, turn down your radio, and please watch your English language.
Today we're talking about priorities and balance. And I don't know about you, but many people that I come in contact are very stressed, overstretched for time, and too busy. So how do you keep your priorities in order and balance? The demands of your life, your busy life. How do you keep the things that matter to you at the top of your list? What do you eliminate in order to make yourself more time? What gets you off track? What tools do you use in order to get yourself back on track to maintain an equilibrium in your life? And as I was doing the research for the show, other than my own experience, and I wanted to look at both internal and external aspects of balance, including mind, heart, and health, and work, family, and fun. And one of the things that was so striking to me before we get into examples and remedies was so much of the research led to the fact that if you're way too out of balance, the rise of anxiety is off the charts to the point where people are on meds like they've never been before. The current estimates say as many as 50 million, that's 30% of adults 18 to 54, have issues with anxiety, and that's a whopping number. 65% of North Americans take prescription medications daily. 43% take mood-altering prescriptions. So we're becoming the worry champions of the world. And it may be because so much is falling apart all around us and we're bombarded by a torrent of negative news all the time, and there are huge problems to deal with. But we'd like to also look not only at those problems, but how do we deal with it? What are the things that keep us on track so that no matter what happens, we are going through life steady with a calm mind to help those in the best we can. We can't help if we're off the charts anxious, that's for sure. And if nothing but for the sake of our children, what can we do to still focus on what is true and beautiful while maybe all hell breaks all around us? I know. You're laughing, Paul. Why? Go ahead.
It's great. It's an interesting question because we've done shows before on how you deal with the sort of pervasive anxiety, the malaise, the creeping malaise, as Jimmy Carter said, and how you deal with that and how you carry on cheerfully with your life and enjoy yourself. And it's and people have different ways of dealing with that. Balancing work and pleasure and life outside work and relationships and friendships is first, I think. The first thing we all need to do, isn't it? And then worry about the big stuff.
It's interesting because as someone who's suffered on and off from some serious bouts of depression since I was a teenager, having gone through sort of and anxiety, and it tends to run our family. My cousin has the same issues. And, we've compared notes through the years of how we have been reacted to, as far as going to a doctor, going to a psychiatrist, and medications and that kind of thing. And I remember I had, right after a really ongoing bad custody battle with my ex-husband, I started to have really massive panic attacks, was afraid to go on bridges. And so I went to the doctor and I said, I'd like to get a referral to go to work with this therapist who specializes in anxiety and panic attacks. but I need a referral from you. She said, oh, I have 2 different drugs you can take, and it'll take it all away. And I said, but I would rather go work with it. I said, I've had issues before, and I find that using a good behavioral therapist, you can really address the issues and work through that. She goes, why would you want to do that? You can go get these pills this afternoon and it'll all go away. And I said, well, perhaps I look at it as part of my life's journey and my own personal growth, that this is something that has come into my life, and if I can be able to conquer it and deal with it on my own, I will grow. And she goes, there are other ways you can grow. Take the pills and go take a dance class. She was just so shocked that, and then I said, well, studies show, in particular on depression, that actual behavioral modification therapy works better than any drug on the market to heal depression. So that was an interesting thing for me to see, the sort of the shift. I mean, the 2 times earlier that I did take medication for depression, the doctors were very specific and did not want me to do that, and it was a last resort. And so just to see the shift from the last time I'd had an issue like that over a 20-year chunk that I hadn't needed, the difference in the response by the doctors when the studies.
Encouraging.
It is encouraging because
no. The recent doctor, the older doctors didn't want to put you on these meds.
Oh, I thought you.
No. So fast forward to 20 years later, and I'm in my early 30s. And I'm seeing a doctor in San Francisco who's like, why won't you just take a pill?
Take the pills.
Whereas when I was 17, it was like, let's first see what we can do to work with you on the depression before we give you medication. So so part of the rise in the prescription meds could be freely doling out, but also I do believe that we have become a far more anxious, worried culture.
We are, but it's linked with that is the fact that Americans are very uncomfortable with uncomfortable feelings. And
our culture is very uncomfortable.
The culture, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. This just, you don't see that, for example, in Europe. I'm going to come saw. You see people are allowed to have a range of feelings more. And our, what is it? It's intolerance. It's terrible intolerance toward crummy feelings and attitudes, where other cultures see this as, well, that's part of life. This too shall pass. Here's some things you can do to lift yourself out, instead of, let's take a pill.
Yeah, and standing around a person, like our whole issue around mourning and those kinds of things. In other cultures, you come around that person and you hold a space for their grief and you allow them to have their grief.
Exactly. Oh, we have a caller.
Yes, we do. Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please?
Oh, my name is Charles.
Hi, Charles.
Yes,
How are you feeling today?
Show to upset its balance, if I can.
Upset its balance. Excellent.
Well, I love that you started, it sounds, Mary and Robin, with this idea that balance may be a bad thing, and that what's lacking in our society is a kind of dynamism, which if you're always seeking balance, which is another word in our culture for control, that kind of dynamism can't happen. In terms of the things that need to change, in terms of creative dynamism. And so we just end up reproducing the past, and we become very conformist. We're always trying to fit ourselves into groups.
No, I'm not saying...
acceptable. I mean, I don't have that problem, but... so I really like the tone that you set with that, because that ideal of balance, it reminds me of a famous speech by Martin Luther King, in which he declared that he was proud to be maladjusted.
Well, I'm not saying that. No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not saying completely it's good to be out of balance, because if you're out of balance, you get sick.
Well,
what I'm saying is there's a lot of reason why we can be worried and anxious about what's going on, but the important thing is kind of to also, as someone who's been in the trenches for many, many years, you have to get a hold of yourself. You have to live your life in a way that has meaning, that still allows you to see what is true and beautiful in life, not just what is horrible and destructive, because we're at a time we're on a razor's edge. You have to kind of hold both of those things. And by being in balance in a good way, I mean by not letting all of that terribly negative things that are all around us pull us off the path of living every moment, because you have to do that too.
I guess, Mary, but I think that we're too good at it. We're too good at blocking out the bad stuff. And with psychopharmacology, we're really good at it. And so we let so much go by. It's hard to understand the destruction of the natural environment when you live in West Marin, but you can drive to Richmond. It's not that far away. and we wouldn't see those worlds as connected. I think that there's a kind of idea of balance in our understanding that divides the world into sacrifice zones, like the Chevron refinery, and exclusion zones, like the natural park. And because one is unaware of the other, apparently, in our mind, then that's a kind of balance. So it's okay that we drive cars all the time and get on airplanes all the time and have our play dates and trips. That's fine, as long as the park remains pure. So balance, I think, is a very dangerous concept, and I think it's is quite negative. To quote someone else, Slavoj Žižek said, "Why be happy when you could be interesting?" Which is something I think I live with. And I think that's right. So the problem with that kind of balance is that we can go into fantasies.
Well, then let's switch the word balance. Let's use priorities. Keep your priorities straight. Do you feel uncomfortable with that?
Doesn't allow us.
What?
So, our culture doesn't allow us.
Yeah, but we can personally make that choice, Charles. We are not in jail in our own minds, only if we put ourselves in jail. Wait a minute. We're only in jail in our own minds if we put ourselves in jail in our own minds. Where do we have total and complete power about everything? It's our attitude toward what happens.
And here I guess I'd argue in favor of a greater need for collectivity, for cooperation with other people, because what those drugs are and what this life as therapy, which is epitomized by all of these nonprofits and religious businessmen that are running around us all the time, is that, we can be safe in our own mind.
So wait,
I'm not talking safe.
I just want to Charles's point, to say that, as someone, especially when you suffer from anxiety or panic attacks, or you have where you can't drive over a bridge for a year, or you have you go into a really deep depression, it's very the balance for you when you're there and you're in it is you're not going to be all happy, snappy to be around if you're really allowing yourself to work through it and go through it. And so the balance may look very different, and it doesn't fit in with the culture either. So it's really, it's a tough thing. I mean, I can remember the last bad depression I had. It wore on for 18 months, and it was really awful. And finally, a close group of women friends I've been getting together with for 12 years, I shared with the 6 of them one day at lunch what I was going through and how I was feeling, and only one person could handle it. And this was a close group of us that's a support circle for each other. And the other 5 ranged from being very upset, dismissive, or angry. And only one person, who actually, oddly enough, was sort of the grumpiest person in the group and the one that could be the snarkiest, she was the one that got it.
That helped you out.
But I think you have to look at what balance is and what someone can do in a specific state, and having, as what Charles says, the collective around you to accept where you are and sort of be present for you.
You were it sounds like you were a threat to what they perceived as their balanced lives, that this was their happy time.
Or I think it was a day that we would get together once a quarter to talk about issues that we're having, and that was the space being held, but they were so uncomfortable to know that someone in their midst, had contemplated suicide, was really in a dark depression. They were so uncomfortable to even. It was like they couldn't believe that was really real, because pretty much you don't. Most everybody gets medicated when they have those issues. They're not really deeply working through them, and medication can be a lifesaver. I don't want to dismiss that when it's called for, but it was really. I was very shocked. And, at the response.
So to Charles's point, that's what he is complaining about, is that people are too ready to go and numb themselves out. But I don't think that's what Mary's talking about when we say balance. It's balance in your...
How do you move through all of this?
How you maintain equilibrium? How do you stay afloat? Maybe that's the way. It's the analogy of the sailboat. You can make really good time when you're in a storm because you're
the wind.
But you're heeled over, but you're still afloat, and everything's fine.
Well, I can always come back to sailing with you, Rebecca. But no, I'd make a quick point about something just historical, then boot me off the air. I need, as a Catholic, I need it. We had back in the 50s and 60s, and it still pervades the culture, although we don't have a name for it, certainly not in my generation, which was called nuclear paranoia. And the solution to the age of nuclear weapons was mutually assured destruction. Now, that's not a world in which there was ever going to be peace between the Soviet Union and the United States. It was a world in which there could be, and they referred to this as the delicate balance of terror, so that each side would be constantly threatened by the other side in such a way that nothing would change, and you could swim through, and you could stay afloat. It was also a time in which the idea of people getting together as the weak in democratic institutions to negotiate with the powerful was dying away because of the massive resistance of the state. I mean, basically on college campuses all over the country, as many of you may remember, state troopers and National Guard were killing people and beating them up, right? So this thing where there is this balance, and that balance is on the level of these global forces or national forces that we have no control over, and then what our duty is to figure out, given that we're not going to be dynamic, given that we're not going to be able to change these things, how do we survive them? And that seems to me to be a pretty pale idea. That seems to be pretty shabby.
Well, okay. So, how would you describe it then? If we're using the wrong words, how do you make your way through each day when you're sitting in ridiculous bureaucracies trying to convince them to do good things, and they just turn a blind eye or deaf ear because you're not coming in with a wad of cash? How do you maintain your equilibrium?
Well, you can't expect you have to redefine what success is. Success isn't triumph. Success is continuing to be able to fight for what you're trying to do, and it is filled with disappointments. And it is also filled with, very human disappointments in the way in which people betray each other and betray good ideas.
Is there room for happiness in this paradigm?
I think, happiness, Mary, is something that just happens anyway. I don't think it's something we should focus on. I think it's something that we should just arise out of, our activities with other people. Somebody told
But
me...
are there things that can move you to living a life where you're still extremely politically involved or not, depending on your interest? You're very aware. You're not dumbed down. I mean, isn't there a value in moving through your life with holding both realities in such a way that your mind is calm, you're still able to see what is true and beautiful, along with what is horrible and terrible? Aren't both important?
I would just say that we have a way of kind of neutering our reaction to things, which says that anger is wrong, conflict is wrong. But anger is this authentic response to the perception of injustice.
Yeah, I agree. I think that goes down to what I was saying earlier, that Americans are very uncomfortable with uncomfortable emotions.
That's what I'm saying. Or just how to allow that to intrude on our sentimental concepts of friendship, like Robin did at that lunch, where certain things aren't allowed to be discussed because it's considered unfriendly. Well, that's the most friendly thing when you tell someone you're in despair. And I would just say, the story I was going to tell, when I moved to San Francisco, somebody said to me, if you want to make a friend, offer to do them a favor or ask them to do you a favor. I would say we need to get away from this sentimentality, get away from this idea of being contained within ourselves. The only way that that's going to happen is if you have some kind of real community.
I agree.
Approach to life as a lonely individual that needs to be fixed or needs to be brought into balance, I think is just, it's what we live in. It's what everybody's doing.
And I think it's one of the biggest reasons why there is so much anxiety and depression, because people don't feel they're connected.
That's right, and connection isn't sentimental. Connection isn't we take play dates. Connection isn't we get together once in a while and have a cocktail, or we can. I mean, if you guys aren't busy after the show. But it means shared survival. The things that we do in our interactions with each other are how we are providing, as Kropotkin would have said, mutual aid to one another.
Yeah, but it's also mutual shared pleasure. You got to put that in the equation.
But I think what Charles is saying is,
deficit of that.
I think that's
really something we haven't figured out yet. I mean, I got the peacock feathers too. We can have the cocktail.
No, but see, I want to really I have to say one thing here. I think that one of the reasons everything is so out of whack, Charles, is that we have taken that piece of what it is to be alive, like every other living creature on the planet who manages to enjoy their life as well as face all the boogeymen of nature that exist too. You have to have both, because you're not really fully a human. It's like the lemon tree. Some lemons look like lemons, they act like lemons, but you cut them open, they're not really lemons. Same thing with people. Some people look like people, they act like people, but you know what? They're not really human.
Mary, I couldn't tell you more that I agree more, but I think the irony that we have to deal with is that culture of self-actualization, of achieving things in yourself, that was very much grew out of coastal California and places like Marin.
Yeah, you're talking about, Marin woo-woo, but I'm
okay,
not
I'm interrupting now. This is Robin. First, Charles, if you want to hang on, I just need to let everybody know this is Let's Talk Radio with host Mary Frank, Paul Raffel, and I'm Robin Carpenter. Please call us on 415-663-8492 or 663-8317 and tell us your thoughts about balance and priority in your life. And, Charles, I think you're actually making a point about balance, and I think somehow the semantics are getting in the way, because I think what Charles is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you're not in connection with others, that by, to think that you can be happy and self-actualized and in balance and not know that part of it has to be your connections to others and to your community
you're out of balance.
You're out of balance, and your real happiness comes from doing that piece. Not like I'm going to go, have happy time with friends that I asked to be my happy time friends. It's okay, I'm going to go over and volunteer at the food bank this afternoon. I'm going to go help, over at the community center. It's more the kinds of things that you're doing in community. Is that correct, Charles?
I think that's right, and I would just the point I would put on it, it's vulnerability towards another person. Why is there this insane mania for pets and this sort of curated private life that we have through our phones and the internet and things like that? It's a desire for control that can never really be there if you have to rely on other people. Now, the problem is we have an economy that's set up and constantly reinforces to us that you individually have to be self-reliant to get the cash that you need to survive, and so you have to conform to the demands of that society and that economy. This is deeply unhealthy, but it is the norm. And so I'd say when you need connection to other people, these are people you're vulnerable to. I can't think of a friend that I have that's truly a friend that has not criticized me in some way that I found cutting and it didn't feel very good. But that's that kind of vulnerability that you have to have in order to have friendships. We're so afraid of that because we have a culture that is so much based on opportunism, dominance, careerism, personal advancement against the interests of anyone else or the community, that it becomes so painful and to be vulnerable in that way.
Yeah, but
set up a trap that we can't get out of. And I think that if there is a true therapeutic potential, it is in that idea of a community of people dependent upon survival with each other, who are vulnerable to each other. There really is no therapy for the individual.
Well, I want to share my story.
Not me, anyway. I'm beyond.
Well, I think we should open the line up. And Charles, thanks so much for calling in.
Yes, thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Take care.
Thank you, Charles.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
I would like to share my experience. It's a little bit different than Robin's, but it was very isolating and very... I think it's an example of what one person who is not in community can do. It doesn't cost anything, and it's available to everybody. I left an extremely abusive relationship after 23 years. I hardly knew my name. I was not even close to the person that I am now. I was thousands of dollars in debt from his drug habit, and cut off from every friend and member of my family. So that was really alone with no community. I did have a job, and that really helped. But in terms of living my life, doing anything, it's someone I've been so active my whole life, I could barely get my head off the pillow in the morning because nothing made sense to me. And these are the things that help. See, I feel that we just can't, we have to address the individual. If you're not whole and functional, it's very hard to be whole and functional for the community. And yes, they go back and forth, there's no question about it, but there's personal work that can be done that can make you more solid, make you more true, and make you more effective as a result, and certainly more healthy. And one of the things that I did when I was living in my car and not knowing where my next meal or anything was coming from was I thought about my life. I made a goal. Like, I want to get out of this. I want to feel good. I want to live a good life again. I made a plan. I wrote it down, and I decided to do it. And when it didn't work, I looked at what puts up the roadblocks. Why did I have to have just one more cigarette? Why did I have to have one more bite when I wanted to lose the weight? These are negative self-talk things that, although it affects the individual, it has huge impact on the community because it's how people move through life. So then I thought, well, how okay, I messed up here, I messed up there, I messed up there. What can I do to empower myself when there isn't anybody to help empower me? When I'm alone at the table and there isn't anybody else? And what can I say to myself to beat the self-sabotaging part of myself? Well, I decided it was important to become my own, this sounds woo-woo, but hear me out. I decided, well, you know what? I can be my own best friend. I can start there. I can love myself. I can be good to myself. I can be my own mother, my own father, my own sister, my own brother, my own friend. And that was a complete, amazing shift. Didn't cost anything, didn't take a pill. It was a shift in consciousness. And don't laugh, but I decided to have this wonderful mantra, I'm fabulous. And it was ridiculous sounding at the time. It made me laugh. But it helped erase all of that other stuff. And, of course, it's much more important, and if you can connect with someone on this journey. But I realized that if you, and I'm not the only one that says this, if you take time to change a habit, research tells us that if you stick to it for 3 months, you have new habits that'll help you have more balance to go forward. Because personal health and balance in your individual is completely directly connected to the health of the community. And if everybody in the community was healthy and balanced, the world wouldn't look like it looks today.
Well, so you overcame abuse in relationship is all about destroying the other person's faith in themselves, right?
Yeah.
So you had to build yourself back up any way you could. And why not that way?
Yeah.
Excellent. Anyway, this is KWMR, 90.5 Point Reyes Station, 89.9 Bolinas Community Radio for West Marin, and 92.3 in San Geronimo Valley. Let's not forget them. Streaming live on KWMR.org. And give us a call. Give us your thoughts. 1415. Yeah, 663. It's second nature now. 8492. Programming on KWMR is brought to you by the Maritime Radio Historical Society, working to preserve West Marin's rich radio heritage. The nation's last working Morse code coast station is in action every Saturday from 12 to 4 p.m. at the RCA receiver site, 17400 Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, just past G Ranch on the Point Reyes Peninsula. Information at 415-663-8982 or online at radiomarine.org. That's radiomarine.org. KWMR also supported by Web Perception, an internet service provider providing West Marin businesses and individuals with internet connection services, serving West Marin and the entire Bay Area since 1997, and offering professional installations usually within 5 to 7 days. Information at 415-892-7711 or online at webperception.com.
You're listening to Let's Talk Radio with co-host Mary Frank, Paul Raffel, and I'm Robin Carpenter. Please share your views by calling us at 415-663-8492, or you can tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR.
And today we're talking about priorities and balance in your life. Do call in. When you hear me say you're on the air, give us your first name, turn down your radio, and please watch your language. 415-663-8492.
Yeah, and I'm curious to ask both of you guys, my co-hosts,
Oh, dear.
when you get pulled off track, what tools do you use to bring yourself back?
Procrastination.
I vote for that. Sleep. I think, I would say the hardest time in my life was when I was a single mom with a very, very disruptive ex and a very high-pressure sales job and straight commission. And so, every month starting over. And, that was a really tough time to stay balanced because there was so much emotional, threat to my son. My ex was being abusive to my son, and we were trying to get it stopped. And so I had that hanging over me, but yet I had to go out and be bright and helpful and chipper and help people with their marketing and in order to make money and to survive. And it was very difficult to me. And so I think,
how did you do that?
A lot of it, I think I just ran on my adrenals, but a lot of it was when I could. I mean, the biggest thing for me was to escape from it now and then. And so for me, it was reading. I always had a book going, and a book that was like, that would grab me. Not a book that was heavy duty. I mean, it could be Harry Potter. It could be, Cold Sassy Tree. It could be any kind of book, but as long as it was a compelling story, that was always my treat at the end of the day. Before I could look forward to after I put Luis to bed, and then I would usually do a couple hours of paperwork, and then I would go to bed around midnight. I still have that. I always have a book going, and that's a little treat that
escape,
for 30 minutes I go to this other place.
Yeah.
I go to someone else's story, and I get to see someone else's life, and that gave me perspective. I go into someone else's world that a really great storyteller provided for me, and that's always been one of my things ever since I was a child that I would look forward to.
And to shut off certain areas of your brain.
That I could just go somewhere else for a little while. And then, and knowing that place was hanging out there for me to go visit. Right. So that's been probably my biggest, one of my biggest things.
Well, I've had such a wonderful life. I hesitate to even enter this conversation because
we want to hear the healthy view.
My neighbor, as I was getting in my car this morning, we were talking about the show, and he said, I think we all think you have your priorities right. I don't know. Living for the moment, appreciating what I have, not working too hard. Sorry, everyone who's expecting me to work on their house. I hesitate to use the word balance, but the balance between friend time, love, love is the most important thing for me. That's keeping my lover happy is always the primary.
I want to marry you.
After that, appreciating where I live as long as I can live here, right?
And I was going to say, I know when your former partner was so ill before she died, that was probably the 2 years before she died. It was really hard on you. I mean, there was a lot of caretaking that you had to do, but you did seem to keep things in balance. Sometimes you looked tired.
We were still having a good time. We were enjoying what we could.
I was going to say that was it was very inspiring to watch. I mean, as much as you could, almost every day, you guys took a nice walk up above Tamales Bay, and Donna would do the easier one, you would do the tougher one, so you got in your exercise, and that when the energy level was there, you were always, holding court, and the people dropping by and coming to visit, that in the midst of a lot of sad things, you guys really did seem to balance between having a good time.
Yeah, and I love what you said, because it goes back to what we were originally talking about. You enjoy what you can.
Yeah.
In the face of all of this. And it's never been more important now. It's not being irresponsible. It's not shoving off, caring.
You just reminded me, Mary, of this thing. And I think I was doing it when I was at TV20, and we talked about it one time. I decided one of the things I was going to do, and I was so frightened for my child and the courts not coming through. And so I decided every day I had to have one moment of joy. And it could be anything. And oftentimes it was driving over the Golden Gate Bridge to go to work in the morning and just taking a moment to go like, I'm on the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm just a redneck from the swamps, and I drive across the Golden Gate Bridge in a nice sob every day. Whatever the moment was, or it could just be I saw a toddler do something darling. And the minute I would feel that little sort of upwelling of joy, I would just open to
Grab
it and
onto
just
it.
feel, it's
Yeah.
sort of like a joy orgasm every day. Just to have, but I had to promise myself once a day to feel joy and beauty, just one time a day. That was it, and it could last 5 seconds.
You can also enjoy being an activist, right? I mean, activist. I don't know if I'm still an activist, but I enjoy this show, introducing my subjects on this show and doing the homework on it. It's always fun for me, and writing whatever I do about things that are happening in the world. That's fun too. I enjoy all that. So it's possible.
Have you ever had any addictions that you'd wanted to break? Has that ever been in your life?
Yeah.
What did you do to break them?
I just stopped doing it.
Oh God, Robin, we're dead.
I could never do that.
Smoking, yeah, I smoked for a long time, on and off. I mean, but I could stop. Mm-hmm. And then 3 years later, I feel like a cigarette. and then I just decided, it was probably 20 years ago now. I just said, that's it. Mm-hmm. No more. No.
To me, actually what made me stop was I became very ill. After I'd gotten spinal meningitis from a tick bite or whatever, and so being in the hospital for 3 weeks did it for me. Otherwise, I don't think I would have done it. And then the next year, I became pregnant, and that was it. So it was like, so I don't know if I could have done it all on my own. It was sort of a divine intervention by that tick that stopped me from smoking.
You were going to read Bernie's comment, and I don't know if we're backtracking here a little bit, but I think it kind of
No, it's good.
It's okay?
Yeah, sure.
Because, it kind of circles back to what Charles was talking about. Anyway, do you have it there?
I can pull it up. And we were talking about it earlier before the show because Bernie and I share our sort of
this
apocalyptic
is
view.
Bernie
Steffen,
our
former
co-host.
And let's see, I'm going to pull it up right here. And, we were talking a little bit about it because I sometimes feel this way as well, and I'll kind of shorten it a little bit, but Bernie was saying my priorities split between egocentric and ecocentric. Balance within self seems hollow without my children having a future. I don't see how anyone can find footing in our made-up world when the real base of our living is unraveling. As our Mother Earth is being gang-raped on a daily basis, our culture, unwitting for the most part, is responsible or at a minimum complicit with our silent denial. What matters to me is that most people are self-centered so much that they are sleepwalking into extinction. Feeling calm, grounded, and clear-headed requires a holistic awareness of the anthropogenic era, in my opinion. The so many distractions and demands in our daily life are exactly part of the problem. Why should any of us have equilibrium when the whole civilization of industry and commerce is hell-bent on exploitation of people and nature for as long as they can do it? And this is what has happened to fun. Let's get deadly serious, and then we can make fun of how stupid our current paradigm is.
But, my reaction to that was just, yes, all of this is true, but then because of that, it's never been more important to have an equilibrium and to go through your mind, go through your life with a calm mind, because you make rotten choices if you're completely upset.
Well, and I think, it's interesting because sometimes I have the feeling of what Bernie's describing, like we should all be grabbing our pitchforks and spearing the politicians and the corporations that are killing we should be doing something that's so much more dramatic and revolutionary than what we're doing. It's a feeling like, are we really just I'm worried about, should I buy another car, or can Cheetahs fix Big Red again? Or, when there are, a beautiful sign of this happening right now is what's happening in North Dakota,
right,
with all of the different tribes coming together from all across the country, and that's beautiful. But then I think to myself, so they stop it for a little while and then they'll just, break the rules and go around it. So I don't want to go into total despair and go well, nothing we do is going to make a difference. But on the other hand, I don't know how big revolutionary actions happen, but I liked Mary's response to Bernie, which was basically we should be able to hold both things.
We have to.
We have to hold both realities. And I was thinking in terms of activist work, one of the things I learned from Donna and Paul was that you don't always get a win. Sometimes you're part of a line of people, and you're number 7 in the line of 20 it's going to take to break down that wall. So it may not happen in your time frame, but you have to know that you're putting you have to remove your ego from it and go, okay, so but I have faith that we can
This will make a
shift
difference.
or disrupt or change things. And I do think, even if, we've talked about this before in the show in the morning, but even if we are the last generation that will live the way we live and see all these things on the planet, there is still beauty every day.
Exactly.
And so we have to hold them both.
And can we appreciate that? I think we still have to appreciate what we
Yes.
have. And, I don't have children, but for those of us who do have children and are worried like Bernie about their future or his grandchildren's future, they don't have a future, he says. Well, you're going to tell them that? Are you going to walk around? You're going to put on the happy face, right? Because that's part of the balance that we all have to achieve within friendship, within family, within community. And we have a caller. What's your name, please? You're on the air.
This is Johnny Moore calling.
Johnny, hey.
Hi.
Hey, Paul.
Hi, Johnny.
Hey, guys. Loving your show this morning. I'm actually in Olema.
Good heavens, you're here.
You're balanced in the Lima.
I am. I've been down in Bolinas for the celebration for Labor Day, which was just sweet.
Yeah.
Tribal, wonderful. Tribe, of course, is what we're talking about here. Your conversation is. And I just thought I want to leave. If I were listening in and didn't know you folk, I would say, well, what can I do to take care of one of my things?
Mm-hmm.
And if the one thing would have been smoking, for example, because tobacco does seem to derail me or us from what we're up to. I don't know how all that. I mean, I know I could do a summation that would make sense, but the point is this: I was taking a seminar back in the '80s, and I had my personal doctor. I didn't have him anymore, but I took the seminar. He happened to be in it. He's my doctor a few years before, and I'd gone out during a break and smoked a cigarette, and he came. I came back in the room. I had my nice, freshly ironed blue pastel blue shirt on.
Wow.
I was looking I was good, but I smelled like a friggin' Marlboro Light, baby. And so he says to me, John, I invite you to stop smoking tobacco. And I looked at him and I said, just before we sat down to continue the seminar, I said, oh, thank you, Neil. And so I sat down. Well, the conversation that ensued that evening was about what is a request, because an invitation and a request are very similar. And so the breakdown was there's only 4 possible responses to a request. That is yes, which would be, let's say, 1. 2 would be no. 3 would be maybe, not now, talk to me later, I'm not interested, wish you a nice day, thank you very much, Neil. Or 4 would be counteroffer, not that, but this. So I realized that I didn't really honorably, it took me actually 8 months. 8 months. And I was waking up this one morning, just before I opened my eyes, I was still in that place between sleep and waking, and suddenly I'm in that friggin' seminar again. I mean, I am sitting right there, and there is Neil, and he's asking me that question. I hear him asking the question. John, I invite you to stop smoking tobacco. So I hadn't woke up yet, so, there might be something, might be something here I don't know. I looked again and I said, well, no, I did not say yes. I did not say no, even though I acted like instead I took the back door out, which was, I don't know, I'm not going to commit later, which means like a number 3, I'm not going to commit now. Maybe. Later. Or number 4, the counteroffer, I didn't have that. I could have just said, well, I'm going to smoke weed every day till I fall over. So what I decided to do, what I saw in that moment of revelation was I could choose newly. So what I'm saying to us is to recognize that to be easy on oneself and that we can choose newly, even though we failed in the past. And at that moment, I said, I could choose. I only have 4 responses to choose from. Yes, no, I don't know, or not that, but this. I went, I think I'll choose yes. Mm-hmm. So I chose yes. I got out of bed. I had 17 cigarettes and a 20-pack of Marlboro Light, and a brand new yellow Bic lighter sitting there on the table. And I just picked them up and I stuck them up in the cupboard.
Uh-huh.
That's the last time I've ever smoked tobacco.
Oh, that is so
Wow.
impressive. I wish I could say something. I tried to quit maybe 35 times, had a big excuse every time. That's a beautiful story. And I finally quit when I didn't want to smoke more than I wanted to smoke, because I love smoking. I enjoyed it. Good for you.
Could you actually, I asked this question really, could you actually light up, take one drag, and put the puppy out?
No, I
No.
could for a minute, but the thing is, I would put them up, I would hide them, I would this, and I would always sneak. And I will tell you this, every once in a while, I bet there's 3 times a year, I still have a cigarette, but at least I'm not a smoker.
Look at you. You know, I have an uncle. The way that he did it was, and I moved in with him for 6 months when he was 41, and he had been off of smoking tobacco for. He stopped by smoking each year. The last. So in January he didn't smoke for 1 month. Then he smoked from February till January. Then the next year, he didn't smoke January, he didn't smoke February, but he smoked March 1st through the
This is a 12-year plan we're talking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so so I happened to move into the guy's house with him for a little while when he's on his last freaking leg, and I didn't realize he started on December 1st. So his goal was to make it through to December 1st, and he would start for the whole month, and they'd begin his ritual. He'd smoke all. But I happened to get there for the last month, you see, at this time. This is going to be different. So on December 1st, I come home from school, and there's 5 packs of cigarettes laying on the counter. All different brands.
Oh, so he liked variety as well.
Yeah. And he smoked every one of those cigarettes for the last month. And that's the last time he smoked.
Wow.
Interesting. Whatever it takes.
There you have it. So when we go for these healing of addictions, I recognize one thing about them. I saw something yesterday by a guy named Chris Martinson talking about the Matrix revealed. And you can see that on YouTube. It's very fascinating. Talked about what we're the underlayment of what you guys have been speaking of here. And that the guy said that addiction is the counterpart to addiction is connectivity.
very
Connectivity.
interesting.
There we are again.
Oh, I read something recently about that as well. That really the whole 12-step program and that kind of thing. Actually, the rate of helping people is very low. It's like 12%, and that what actually helps people is to come back into a
meetings.
community or a family, or come back with connected to people, because that motivates them to stay. I mean, to me, what motivated me, throughout the years was being a mother. And so I was like, every time I would think about cheating and smoking, which I was dying. I never, people go, oh, don't you wish you never craved a cigarette? And I said, no, I wish it was good for me to smoke a cigarette. That's what I wish for, So that really kept me going all those years. And then my son started smoking in his teens when he went off to college. And when you're going to read college, you're saying screw you to the man, and you're smoking his tobacco. That's the most capitalistic thing you can do. It's not rebellious to smoke. So then I thought, well, I really can't start smoking now, because now I have to be, the paragon of non-smoking.
Yes.
So now he's quit smoking. So I'm wondering, can I smoke now? He finally quit. If they could only make it good for us.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thanks, Johnny.
Appreciate the call, man.
Love it. I can't wait. I'll listen to the rest of the show, and I'll talk to you guys really soon.
Thank
buddy.
you so much.
It is interesting. His point, Mary, is sometimes we find balance through addictions, or sometimes we find balance through addictions like smoking or over drinking or overeating. That's our way we're seeking balance.
I don't know if that's balance. I think it's self-medication.
But I'm saying
Self-medication,
it shows the need for balance. When we do that, it's because we're trying to balance ourselves. We're trying the need. Like, to me, a cigarette operate on so many emotional levels
Oh,
to me.
totally.
When I had a cigarette, I wasn't by myself because it was
That-
me and my cigarette.
That's what my friend Nancy said. It was a chain smoker. I said, Nancy, she's raising 6 kids, right? That'd be a chain
Well, that would
smoker
make me
too.
chain smoke too.
And I said, I'm really concerned because you're smoking so much. And she said, Mary, Jim, her partner, he was a filmmaker and he was always gone. And here she is. She said, it was like my friend. It's like my friend.
Yeah.
And it is, a lot of time. But I don't think that's balance. I think it's an addiction.
It's a crutch.
It's a way of self-medicating.
Yeah.
Same thing with food.
So, I did make a few notes. Look,
I can see.
and I think my secret to a balanced life, if I have a balanced life, is that I have no goals. It's a terrible thing to say, but there was a quote online. It said, "My goal is to build a life I don't need a vacation from." I think that's
I
It's
love
wonderful.
that.
It's wonderful.
because
We're
people
older.
are-
We get to feel like that.
We're out
When
here
you're
in
younger,
vacation land,
Yeah.
and people obviously don't live where they want to be. I've said that a million times, and they're on vacation and they must enjoy themselves. And is that a balance? Why can't you enjoy what you're doing every day of the week? Why do you have to go away?
Because they drank
soon
the
as you go.
Kool-Aid. They
Yeah.
drank the Kool-Aid, And a lot of people don't have the choices that we have. We were educated a certain way. We were, you had a wonderful, supportive family. That all helps. Mhm.
Yeah.
But I do think that's an excellent point. I have a really good friend, Naso, who works over in Ocasio, and he says the same thing. He said, if I feel the need to take a vacation, like I've got to take a vacation, he said, something's wrong with my life. To me, a vacation should be, I like to go home to Greece once a year and see my family and
Sure.
my homeland, because I crave to reconnect. But it's not like, I'm so looking forward to getting out of here and going to Greece. If I'm feeling that way, then something's wrong.
Something's wrong,
Something's
yeah.
wrong.
Smart.
And there was an Alan Watts thing on as well. People live to retire.
Yeah, which is
Wow.
a shame.
Yeah. Well, if they're
That's
lucky,
awful.
I don't think Andy and I'll ever retire.
And not making life is not a journey, it's not a goal. If the end of a musical composition were the point, then all music would just be one really fast chord.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
You got to appreciate, he said, of course, being Alan Watts, he said, you're supposed to sing and dance at each moment. There you go.
Yeah, that's like what Angelos Aragon says to
But-
people who are the
Yeah.
old sage. When did you stop dancing? When did you stop telling stories? When did you stop listening to music? As we go through this horrendous and very challenging time, these things become extremely important because no matter what happens, you're going to throw your life away now if we're going to die 1,000 years from now or tomorrow. You're still,
It's really interesting because when Andy and I first got back from being gone a month back in New Orleans and Mobile, almost every day, if we had time, we took our little small kitchen table outside on the deck, this over the creek, and we had bought lots of CDs from everybody we heard playing, and we would play music because I used to always have music going on in the background, and then our stereo got stolen, et cetera, et cetera. So, we did that for the.
There's a bit of balance, right?
I know, and so now I have a nice small balanced Bose system. So it was interesting because we realized yesterday we were going to have to go over and do some budget stuff and look at some harsh financial realities, and I could tell both of our issues were coming up. Me feeling sort of slightly attacking, and then Annie feeling defensive, and then him feeling I screwed this. And I thought this is going to be a really unpleasant conversation. And I thought, we did it for about a month. So I said, before we talk about this, let's move this table. Let's go get the Bose and put it out on the deck. And let's, I'm going to have a glass of iced tea. You get what you want. And we're going to sit out. We're going to do this outside, in the trees with some music, and we were
and
able
play nice.
we realized it would help balance the bad news and the angst and the upset and all the fear and all the we're never gonna make it out of all this, that kind of feeling that you get when you often talk about harsh financial realities. And it really, it took us about 2 hours to crank through. We had a lot of paperwork and stuff to do, and you know,
It really
we didn't fight at all.
That's so great. And, you know, the magical thing about that is when you put yourself in that frame of mind before you go through anything challenging, guess what? You're more creative, more ideas come.
Yeah.
New things come to you. When you're tight and tense and shut down, you might as well be brain dead. And that's the beauty
Yeah, I
of
told
that.
him, I said, next time we start to have an argument, let's go on the deck. For one thing, I won't yell because I don't want the neighbors to hear me yell. But on the other hand, I said, you know, really, by grounding ourselves in nature and having music that we really liked, we decided to pick which CDs were to us like calming but yet fun. And I was really proud of us. We were both like, that was brilliant.
That is brilliant.
And it was free. It was what we have right in our own.
Excellent.
Yeah, so many of these
backyard.
things are free. Well, I want to thank all our listeners and our callers today for your participation. I hope you'll tune in every Thursday at 11 because your voice really does matter.
KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and callers and do not necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members.